Today we're going to finish up the week with a couple of polls. We've got one for New York City mayor, and that race might be tightening up as the primary approaches on the 24th. But first, we've got one here for governor of Florida. It's a long way off, but this actually takes a look at the general election next year. So this poll is from Victory Insights. Might have a little bit of a Republican lean to it. However, the headline is Florida governor poll finds Byron Donalds with healthy lead, nearly a third of voters undecided. So if you're unfamiliar, it's going to be an open seat next year. Both sides definitely have primaries, but U.S. Rep. Byron Donalds seems to be the early frontrunner for the Republicans. And apparently on the other side, there's been recent news about former Republican Congressman David Jolly making a run for the Dems. So if we go down here a little bit, this article sums things up in Florida. But first, the poll was conducted June 7th through the 10th with 600 likely Florida voters. And then it's got text to web and interactive voice response. So let's get up here and take a look at this poll. So the first thing that jumps out is this graph here for the general. Byron Donalds, 36.7. David Jolly, 31.4. Undecided, a big 31.9. So it's super early, that's not totally shocking. But let's see what they have to say about the state of this race. And this first paragraph pretty much sums up the entire thing. We've got former Congressman David Jolly has entered the race for governor of Florida. Once a Republican, Jolly has been vocally anti-Trump in recent years and is running for governor as a Democrat. Some observers receive this news as a major development, positing that the fact a congressman was once a Republican would by default make him more palatable to modern Republicans and therefore put the race for Florida governor in play for the Dems. But then it goes on to say the most important sentence. One realizes that this particular thought process is grounded more so in hope than in reason upon remembering that Democrats' nominee for governor in 22 was also once an elected Republican official, and he still lost in a landslide. They don't even name him here, but of course we all know that is Charlie Crist, former one-term Republican governor Charlie Crist. He had kind of a political evolution. He became an independent. He took a loss in the U.S. Senate. Then he's had multiple losses as a Democrat running for governor, most recently in 22. And I'm going to say it's ironic that Charlie Crist actually defeated David Jolly in the U.S. House. They're both from that same district around the Tampa-St. Petersburg area. After redistricting, Crist did not run for the House again. So that theory of a former Republican, even a governor, making the state more competitive just did not remotely pan out whatsoever. In fact, it went in the other direction. Charlie Crist lost by about 19 points to DeSantis. Now, given that this is an open seat this time, the margin should be more narrow. But I would think the Dems could do better than David Jolly. It really does seem like Charlie Crist 2.0. So it seems like a huge uphill climb here as this state has gotten redder and redder over the past several elections. But you never know, there's always a chance that it ends up panning out. The next thing to point out here in this head-to-head matchup is undecided voters lean Republican by 17%. So anything could change over the next year plus. Both Donalds and Jolly are going to have to get their name ID higher than it is now. But back in 2018, in the open seat for governor during a blue wave, DeSantis pulled out the upset win, and Rick Scott in the Senate took down Bill Nelson. That was the point where the state kind of cemented itself as being red. Ever since then, it seems like the polls underestimate the Republicans here by at least a few points. I've done the same thing on my own predictions. So maybe none of this happens. Maybe it ends up being Casey DeSantis for the Republicans. Maybe a different Democrat gets into the race altogether. Maybe Charlie Crist makes another run at it. But for right now, they're hyping this up as the most likely matchup. Now let's go down here. We've got a little bit more data. And here we've got the candidate favorability ratings, but I'm not really a big fan of this table. It just has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I guess 1 and 2 are a negative opinion, 4 and 5 are positive. If that's the case, they should have labeled it better or flipped the way that they present these numbers, because down here it shows that positive is listed first. And none of these ratings look good here. Trump is underwater. He's at 42.4% positive. Governor DeSantis 1 point ahead, 43.4. Byron Donalds 24.5. David Jolly 15.1. Everybody underwater here except for Donalds, but his name ID is about half of DeSantis and Trump. Jolly even a little bit lower. So that's a weird looking table, but it looks like not a lot of satisfaction here according to this data. And then down here we've got self-identified type of Republican. 43% say they're a Trump MAGA Republican. About 23% say moderate, 17 traditional, and another 17 constitutional conservative. Doesn't really break that down into detail on here. And then they even throw in this bonus chart here. We've got 2028 Democratic presidential primary. The winner here so far is nobody. We've got undecided at 31%. Now after that, we've got Pete Buttigieg, the leader, at 23. Ocasio-Cortez is second at 14. Then we've got Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom at 12. Andy Beshear and Josh Shapiro are at 5 and 3 respectively. I think Beshear and Shapiro are lower on here because they just really don't make the headlines in the news. Now I don't think Buttigieg should be that high either. But AOC, Booker, Newsom, they've been in the news a lot. Shapiro and Beshear kind of under the radar. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they're waiting to make a big splash early next year. But for right now, looks like Buttigieg here is in the lead. So that's what we've got here for Florida. Now the other race, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, the one we take a look at almost every time, is New York City mayor. So here on Politico, it has the headline as new polls show a Cuomo-Mamdani face-off in a tightening New York mayoral race. So there were multiple polls that came out in the past week or so. They do show it tightening up here. So this article kind of sums it up here. But we're going to get on Wikipedia and take a look at all the data at once. So these top three here are the most recent. We've got the polling source, the dates administered, the sample size, the margin of error, and then the rounds in ranked choice voting. That's how they do it in that primary. You've got to get over 50% to be the winner. You still have to win in November, but given how blue the city is, it's very likely whoever wins this is going to be the next mayor. So there are three polls here. The third one here is from Data for Progress. Now this one was sponsored by Mamdani's campaign. He's the more progressive candidate that's been trying to mount a serious challenge to the more establishment former governor Andrew Cuomo. So in that poll, it starts off with Cuomo at 37 and Mamdani at 31. Then, after 8 rounds, once every other candidate is eliminated, Cuomo prevails but barely, 51 to 49 for Mamdani. So that's obviously within the margin of error, and it shows a race that is tightened up considerably. But the counter to that is Mamdani was behind that poll, so maybe it's going to be a little bit more in his favor. Even if it is, I'm sure that's enough to spook Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo's been unpopular, but his name ID is sky high. Mamdani has had the uphill climb, going against the establishment and trying to have people know what his platform is all about. Now the next poll here from Expedition Strategies. This one was sponsored by Cuomo's campaign. And in the first round, Cuomo is at 42, Mamdani 30. 8 rounds later, Cuomo wins it at 56 to 44. That's 12 points versus the 2 points from the Mamdani poll. So maybe you average the 2 out and Cuomo is up by about 6. But there's still about a week and a half to go. Anything could happen in that short of a time when you're talking about a few points. Now the one thing I want to point out here with this poll from Cuomo, we've got the demographic breakdown of the sample here. And it has the boroughs, the ages, and the races. But for gender, it has 40% men, 60% women. Now, I haven't looked up the exact census data myself, but that does seem like a pretty big gap. Maybe those are the demographics more favorable for Cuomo. But even though it's a blue state and this is just for the Dems, I would think those samples should be a little bit closer to even. Of course, feel free to look through all the other data here if you'd like. Now, the last poll here at the top, this was sponsored by Destination Tomorrow. The final result in that one is the same as the Cuomo poll. He gets it 56 to 44. So is this race tightening? Yeah, it does seem like it. Could something happen here in the home stretch and Cuomo is not the nominee? Yeah, that also seems increasingly possible. You've got all different kinds of things happening. You've got AOC endorsing Mamdani. You've got former mayor Michael Bloomberg endorsing Cuomo. Cuomo has all kinds of baggage, but Mamdani might be considered too outside the mainstream on some issues. It's unclear what's going to happen. The late breakers could go in one direction or the other. Maybe Cuomo does win by 10 or 15 points. If Mamdani's going to squeak it out, I would think it would be by low single digits. But hey, the state of this race has clearly changed over the past few months. Before, it looked like Cuomo was going to run away with it, but that's why I always tell people to wait and see what happens. The final month is when people actually start paying attention. So this race is certainly heating up. Maybe it's hyped up and nothing really crazy happens, but we're going to find out in less than 2 weeks. So that's it for a look at Florida and New York City. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about David Jolly in Florida against Byron Donalds? Is that just a repackaging of Charlie Crist? And what about in New York? Is Andrew Cuomo actually in danger now, or is he going to have the political machine behind him get him another win? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.